All right. Hi, folks. It's Pedantic Skeptic here, and I have had a long day. My alarm didn't go off, and so I missed my class. Um, I got a lot done at home. Um, I'm exhausted. I had my first crested gecko pairing of the season. I will probably pair one other female. I have 4 adult females, 2 of whom are not mateable. One of them, um, was a rescue from somebody who didn't really know how to take care of her, and she just has a bunch of health problems. I did breed her last year just to see what happened, and she didn't even produce eggs. So I'm not going to even try. It just wouldn't be a safe thing to do for anybody involved. And then the other female has that I'm not going to breed. Has bred before, but she has a hard time with keeping enough weight on during the breeding and egg laying season, and a lot of her eggs just ended up not hatching. So it's probably a good idea not to breed her or her offspring that I have, who looks like a female. I'm pretty sure that I have a daughter of this gecko, and I'm probably not going to breed that gecko either, just because I want to make sure that I'm only producing the healthiest animals, and I have a backlog of hatchlings from last season still. But anyway, um, I've been going through and responding to the Cornerstone Church's Apologetic Session 35, Origins and Evolution Part 2. But I wanted to take a short break from that. Now, um, just a heads up, I've promised a couple of videos, such as the hybridization video, where I talk about how hybridization may or may not happen, and then I wanted to talk about um, convergent evolution, where there are different forms of adaptation to overcome the same problems. But I was going to first make PowerPoint presentations for those to complement the actual content, and I just haven't had the time to go do that yet. I hopefully will start that this weekend if, the semester has started up again, and I am taking like 4 courses right now, and um, I'm in the middle of like 3 other projects, research-wise, and so I am a little bit short on time. But um, today, or for this video, um, I wanted to look at Apologists Studios' How to Disarm an Unbeliever. So we'll get into that. Okay, let us start. If you'll notice, I have moved the webcam overlay. For those of you who don't know, I use a program called Bandicam. It's a very nice program for a lot of the video type things that I do. I do personally really like Bandicam. I have a webcam overlay setting for a couple of main reasons. First, it gets around some of the copyright issues because the video has now been physically altered because of my face in the corner, and it just kind of gets that fair use. But it also is just helpful for everybody to just see my facial expressions and things like that as I respond. So I did move, however, the overlay to the bottom left corner, only because that seems to be like where the least, things are happening. On the actual original videos, and I, like with my the apologetic sessions, there was a lot of writing up on the whiteboard, which is on the left side of the screen. Well, my left, your probably be your right, but whatever. No, because if it's a screen record, it's still gonna be on your anyway. And I didn't want to cover that up too much anymore, just because I'd rather not be accused of dishonest editing or anything. So I figured I would move the overlay. So let's see what this is.
So we're gonna ask one more question, and then we're gonna get you guys out of here for lunch.
It looks a little late in the day for lunch.
You probably think this is weird, but when I got invited to come, I Googled you because I was like, I don't really know Jeff Durbin, and so I started seeing the
Oh, good. They finally unblurred the
videos. All that to say that it sets up this last question because I started watching some of your conversations.
Ooh, I should text questions to these people.
With atheists, and so the last question was this: how do I have a conversation with an atheist?
That depends on what your goal is. The thing is, Anybody can have a conversation with anybody else. It doesn't have to always be about what your religious beliefs are. And I know this is a Christian apologetics podcast, so he's probably inquiring about like if somebody's not convinced of my God, how do I have a conversation with them specifically about that God? But just a general conversation with an atheist, like throughout my day today, I've conversed with atheists and theists on things that have nothing to do with atheism and theism. I spoke to somebody, I sent a couple of people my silly joke about waxworm moths. It's just a pun. Um, and I spoke to somebody about spiders, and I spoke to somebody else about a mantis of mine that's about to become an adult, which is exciting. And I spoke to someone else about feeding some lizards, and I fed my lizards, and conversations don't always have to go back to God and things like that.
And so that, and the question literally says, so that they're not so close-minded.
Again, I don't know if people are close. I don't know how you could assess somebody's open-mindedness versus closed-mindedness. If you're defining, closed-mindedness as just not being convinced of what you bring to the table, that's not necessarily being closed-minded. But if I'm talking to somebody, the conversation is probably not about religion. It's probably, I sent somebody an email about orchids earlier today, and I had to respond to that email about orchids later today. I sent somebody an email about something that was going on in my not in my class, but in my program that I'm not going to publicly share here, because it's not really anybody's business. But nonetheless, I've had a lot of conversations with people just throughout the course of the day that don't require you to be particularly open or closed-minded. You know, I feel like they're trying to set up a script.
Now, first I'll say, do the same thing that I did, because it was really good to watch Jeff in action. So I'm going to give you some homework to go and do that, especially those that asked me that question.
Okay, I will go ahead and watch Jeff. He is nice to look at, I will say. Very aesthetically pleasing person.
Because I think he does a great job of demonstrating some of that. So before we respond, I just want to challenge you to go and do that. What website can I point them to?
So definitely go to apologiaradio.com.
Okay. Let's see. No, not well, let's see. Oh, Jesus. I mean, do we want to just go to apologiaststudios.com? Jesus Christ. I don't want all that. Ooh, shop. I do like that gremlin looking thing. I don't know, browse maybe? Oh boy. I'm not gonna tackle this right now. That's funny, a bird head. Okay, back to browse. I don't want. Ooh, ask me anything live stream. What's this? Every third Tuesday of the month at 1 p.m. Arizona time. Would that be Central or every third Tuesday of the month? Crap, that was fucking yesterday. Jesus Christ, I missed it. God damn it. Wait, that was. Oh. No. Never mind, never mind. There are 5 Tuesdays this month. Usually aren't, which though, let's see, February. So February 21st. I wonder, oh boy. Oh boy. Um, Should we Halloween if you want to? Okay. Let me just look up Jeff Durbin. Okay, then. Was Jeff Durbin a Ninja Turtle? Okay. Let's see. I love how he capitalizes atheism here. Okay. Criminalizing abortion doesn't end it, but that's a different matter. Yeah, I had a conversation with somebody earlier today. About, you know, it was a joke. Like, when I say this, it's a joke. But I, did, about us. Let me see. Oh, fuck. I didn't want to click that. Doctrine. Oh, boy. What does this say? Oh, Jesus. After much prayer discussion, hang on. We are in no way fearful of this virus. Oh, jeez. Really? Do they have to capitalize Corona? God knows who will or will not be infected with Corona. Oh, Jesus. Okay. I'm not going to worry too much about that right now. That's a very interesting logo. Doctrine. Let's see. Alright, whoopsie. What is Mormon tract? Like the digestive tract of a Mormon? Oh, jeez. Cultish. Apparel. Accessories. Ooh, let's look at the coffee mugs. That's cute. I could agree with some of the stuff. That's cute. Anyways, what was I getting at? I'm trying to remember what I was, doing on this website. I try to, kind of understand the people who I'm responding to, and I'm trying to just be open-minded, although it's, just a little bit, I'm not going to address the names of their kids. It can be tricky. What was I doing? Public debate against capital A atheism. Okay. Oh yeah, the abortion thing. So, I made a joke about the best way to end abortion is just to sterilize everybody. I mean, like, I guess that was, that would, technically, oh, geez. Oh, I mean, I guess technically that was a viable answer, but I don't obviously condone doing that, but, it was just me being silly. Anyway, let's get back to this.
.com to get all of our radio shows and our regular weekly.
I will say that this video is, 6 years old, I believe. Oh crap, what did I just do? Yeah, this video is like, was this 6 years ago? Yeah, this is 6 years ago, so maybe, they changed their, website up or something, I'm not gonna worry about it.
Stuff. We also have a TV show that airs on the NRB Network weekly, so you can do that. You can sign up for our All Access and get access to my academy, all of our shows, apologiaradio.com. You should definitely do that. But Apologia Studios on YouTube, there's just tons of videos and content. And actually, yeah, I think you probably...
I'm just gonna say this real quick. I want to actually respond to something. I don't want to just listen to him plugging. Does he have a hole in his ear where he's sticking the, like, fucking microphone thing or whatever that wire is just through the hole in his ear? I mean, like, I guess if he wants to do that, I can't stop him, but that's something I haven't seen before. Um, I mean, I don't really have an earlobe in my left ear, so it would be a little bit difficult for me to do something like that, but that's his right ear, and my right ear has an earlobe. Like, no, 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 it's just wrapped around the, back of his ear. I can see it, in front, parallel to that sideburn there. Okay, okay, that makes more sense.
I heard some actual conversations with atheists and agnostics and things like
Um, so let's assume that when he's talking about conversations with atheists, it's conversations about the issue of God. Like, I'm an atheist. You can have a conversation with me about a lot of different things. We can talk about um, lizards. We could talk about frogs. We could talk about my roommate's dog. We could talk about health issues. I could talk about my friend who lives, wherever, who, I last spoke to 2 days ago. We could talk about anything, really. Um, there are a few things that I don't want to talk about with most people, but for the most part, there aren't a lot of things that I am unwilling to talk with somebody about. Um, Although I will say that, you know, it needs to be, I don't want to say on my terms, but, like, please don't try and have a conversation with me if I'm in the middle of something, because I have a really hard time keeping my focus when I try to multitask. Um, and so, you know, if you want to have a serious conversation with me, schedule it. Okay? Don't come to me when I've been on campus for 6 hours and I'm coming home and I need to, water plants, give, the frogs food, and, clean up, do a little bit of homework or something like that. Don't come to me then. Come to me when have when we can settle on, like a time when neither of us are busy. And then, we can talk. Anyway.
that. So I would definitely
that's what I did. But I do want you to go ahead and answer that.
Yeah.
But I do want to give you that homework. Go and watch it in action because I think that'll also give you just some.
I would love to watch it in action. I mean, maybe I'll go back to his site and see if there is anything. Or actually, maybe we can check their channel, but let's see.
Context, it's really happening right in front of you.
Yeah. Okay, so the question was, how do you do it in a way to sort of disarm them so they're not so hostile?
I don't know if I would say we're necessarily hostile. I mean, it depends on what you're defining as hostile. I might swear, but I'm not gonna, like, rip your head off. And if you find me swearing to be, the crime of the century, the most offensive thing, then I'm sorry, but, that's a you problem. But I would say, if you're worried about people being hostile, don't, like, chase people down, take a hint when somebody doesn't want to have a conversation with you, things like that. That's probably going to avoid most of these issues. Nobody likes, and I'm on a college campus where this happens all the time. Nobody likes, being bombarded with, questions when they have 10 minutes between classes and they're trying to get from one end of campus to the other. Okay? I don't understand, it's one thing if, you stay put and, you don't engage with people unless they're, walking directly up to you. But, please don't chase people down. Please don't harass people. And, if somebody is going to come up to you to, get in your face and be hostile, I'm sorry if they do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not too concerned, if you're minding your own business. But, you should be careful about generalizing an entire group of people by things that, some of the group might do. Because Christians hate it when we generalize all Christians, but they do seem to be generalizing all, atheists and agnostic, non-religious, secular people here. They shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is important. Foundationally, I know you're probably hungry. We started a little late with my message, so I'm sorry to run over on your time, but I just want to make sure I say this in a way that is meaningful. First and foremost, the problem with the unbeliever that you're talking to.
Oh boy, what's he gonna say? Just a second, my friend is having a problem with a plant. What the hell?
Is a more fundamental problem than they want to talk about.
Oh boy, I wonder what he's going to say next. Is he going to say something like, we hate God, we want to sin? The cliche things that some of these types like to say. I don't know. I don't know what he's about to say. I mean, he seems friendly enough, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't have some serious prejudices.
It's not simply that they don't see enough evidence for God or
Usually it is.
light for God. It says in the Bible that we are in.
All right. You probably shouldn't use the Bible as a reliable source for information about a group of people, because the Bible wants you to believe a certain thing, and when somebody doesn't believe that, it's going to say whatever it can to make you, not like the people who oppose it. It's a common tactic. A lot of people, a lot of groups, a lot of whatever will do this, where, and the higher the stakes, the more you see this, like, I, grow ferns, but I don't, trash talk people who don't grow ferns. But, like something like the Bible is, of course, going to paint people who aren't, believers in the word of the Bible, the words in the Bible, as somehow deficient, bad, what have you.
One of two people. We're either in Jesus or we're in Adam. That is.
Oh my God. So,
We are either fallen or we are saved. So we are either in a relationship of peace with God or we are in a hostile relationship with
I mean, that's not entirely true at all. I feel like this is it's false dichotomy, but also it's, not an accurate way of painting people, because there's a group of people called misotheists, people who believe in God, but believe that God is, a dick. They believe God is bad, and, that we should hate God and not worship God. That's not the same thing as somebody who doesn't believe God exists in the first place. Somebody who doesn't believe God exists in the first place doesn't have any kind of relationship with God, okay? And it's not necessarily a, pushing away, it's just kind of like a not grabbing on.
with God. So the truth is, the Bible actually says that it is God by his grace that he grants people understanding. He grants them.
So why hasn't God, done, if God knows everything, let's just assume that God knows how to convince me of his existence. Why hasn't he yet? If he's concerned at all about me, which, a lot of these people claim he is, why hasn't he done something that he would already know would convince me to convince me?
Eyes to see, he grants them the ability to see him. So watch this. I'm trying to give some hope here. It's not up to you and to me to ultimately convince anybody into God's kingdom.
Does this mean you're not going to come bother any of us? Because I really don't take well to being bothered. I, part of it's neurodivergent brain, and a lot of these people aren't accommodating of the neurodivergent. And, you know, I feel like there should be. I would love to see, some neurodivergent believers who are interested in engaging with people who have different ways of processing social interactions. Because all of these people that I've responded to so far have been really, if they want to be, welcoming to atheists and engaging with atheists, they don't know how to deal with neurodivergent people because all of their, stuff is from an holistic perspective. And that isn't a one-size-fits-all approach.
However, I think that one of the most important things we can do as we engage people is pay close attention to 1 Peter 3:15.
I hope he's going to, actually, one sec. What? For it is God's will that by doing good you should silence the ignorant talk of foolish people. Now, if you're wondering why I went incognito for this, it's just because I don't want search recommendations based on this to appear on my Google, because that would just drive me nuts. It would just irritate me. I'm trying to think. It is God's will that by doing good you should silence. So, like, by doing good, people are going to stop ignorantly speaking. Okay, that's fine. I mean, like, you don't have to be a believer in God to do good things. And there's always going to be, shit talkers, but whatever. Let's just see where he's going with this.
I said it to you at the beginning, right? Sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts, always being ready to give a reasoned defense to everyone who asks you a reason for the hope that's within you.
I'm not going to come up to you and ask that. It's not something I'm interested in knowing. I'd rather know, like, do you have a dog? Do you like dogs? Do you have a cat? How do you feel about spiders?
Watch. It says to do it with gentleness and respect.
Okay. I can get with that. I do want to, I don't know if these are the people that, like, stand on the street corner and, like, bug everybody that comes up to them. But I wouldn't call that gentle or respectful, no matter, like, what kind of wording you're using or anything like that. I wouldn't call that gentle or respectful. I would, however, say that, if anybody watches, like, Atheist Experience and some of those other call-in shows, and people, have an objection, well, you're trying to, bother people out of their beliefs, and then their response is, well, no, we're sitting here taking people's calls. You chose to call us. Like, if it's one of those things where, it's the person who decides to go and have a conversation with these people, fine. I don't have a problem with that. I honestly could care less. Um, I'd rather converse with you about other stuff. Um, I'd rather tell you that, like, I want to grow peaches and I have peach seedlings, and I was also curious if a certain type of cherry, because peach is a type of cherry, it's in the genus Prunus, if, Prunus patus can act as a rootstock for grafting peach, because I haven't seen any information where anybody's tried it, so I don't know. And so I started some Prunus patus seeds to do a little experiment where I try to graft Prunus persicus onto Prunus patus. I'd rather talk to you about that. Um, you know, that's something more interesting to me. And, if we don't even have to cover, God, Jesus, whatever else, but, or how about this? If you let me converse with you for 20 minutes about whatever I wish to, and, I will, keep it relatively neutral, I won't, it won't involve sex, it won't involve abortion, it won't involve, things like that. It could be something like, the difficulty of, the genus Creobroter, or, what the best houseplant for rearing Luna moths is, something like that. Maybe give me 20 minutes to info dump on you, then, we can have a conversation about Jesus, the Bible, whatever, if you want. That's fine. I'm willing to give and take. And, if you want to have a conversation with me, and we can figure out a time and a place and whatever else, I don't care. We can do that. Okay? But please don't, interrupt my day. Interrupt my, walking from point A to point B. Because, I do sometimes wander aimlessly, but please don't automatically assume that because I'm walking around aimlessly. I very much like to, observe, like the plants on campus during different times of the year. Somebody emailed me. All right.
So I think one of the most important things we can do to disarm somebody is stop trying to be the one who wins.
I would agree. There doesn't necessarily have to be anything about winning or losing or, anything like that. Yeah, I mailed my friend a plant cutting, a monstera cutting for a terrarium. This friend is having a hard time right now with the plant, and I'm like, how much light is it getting? And the person's like, well, there's, a big shining window, and I'm like, when they're at this stage of trying to root, they shouldn't be given too much light. It's going to dry them out. It's going to cause harm. It's going to break down the important chemicals in the stem that allow for the roots to form. Hang on a sec. Yeah, the light degrades the natural chemicals that okay.
Win the person, not the argument, which means that you should respect and love.
I should say quickly that respecting a person and, even admiring them and being their, acquaintance, friend, whatever, having a peaceful interaction with another person doesn't necessarily mean you have to agree wholeheartedly with everything that they think and say. Okay? There are people who I have massive disagreements with on a number of things. Not always about, God stuff. Like, I have disagreements with, my partner about the role of fleas and ticks in the environment, things like that, and, that's just one thing, and, I have disagreements with people about all sorts of things. It doesn't mean that I have an issue with them as a person. Likewise, and conversely, you don't have to agree with everything that a person believes just because you are that person's friend or anything like that.
Love somebody, treat them with humility, but when necessary, breathe fire.
When is it ever necessary? You know what? Just let him finish.
You can breathe fire. Breathe fire when necessary, but it's not always time to breathe fire.
I would love an example of when you should breathe fire, quote unquote.
But understand that when you are witnessing to somebody and they finally see and believe, that's to the glory of God and it's His work, not yours.
Fair point.
Which means that it's important for us to let go of the reins in trying to manipulate the conversation and the person and recognize that if they're ever going to get any light into their hearts, it's because God's going to put it there. Our role is to testify to the truth, to just tell the truth. And I think if people see in you that you actually love them and care for them and not just trying to win.
Where's he going with this?
It does disarm them.
I guess. I mean, he's making a point. That's a pretty sound point, yeah.
And I think it's one of the most important things for me in my ministry, and I hope that it's reflected in the videos that are up.
has a very veiny wrist. Like those are some pretty thick veins. It must be pretty easy for him to like donate blood.
That I try to love the people that I'm talking to and to show them through my own actions how much I truly am concerned for them. And if they see
Concerned how? Um, you know, I am a broke ass graduate student with a lot of things going on in my life. And, I don't think your first concern about me should be anything related to salvation, what's going to happen after I die, and, my relationship with God, Jesus, what have you, anything like that. I think, you should have concerns about, my well being and, how I'm getting on and, what I'm setting out to do with my life right now. That should be your concern if you want to be concerned about me. And I'm not asking you to be. I'm not asking you for help figuring my shit out. Um, you know, and it's not just because he's a Christian, it's because I don't know him well enough to know if he's able to help me at all. I certainly don't need, guidance from a biblical perspective on what to do. I need, guidance, on how do I, you know, deal with my roommates. I'm not saying that my current roommates are bad at all. I've had bad roommates. My current roommates are wonderful people. That's just an example.
see that in you, I believe that they see your sincerity and that you're genuine and they respond. It's not always that way. Sometimes people are just hostile to God, and you just need to trust God and continue to love them anyways. Jesus did.
I mean, maybe there are people who are hostile with God. There are people who have religious trauma, and it's not necessarily an issue of God. It's more of an issue of people proselytizing to them, and how partaking in certain rituals may be bad for their mental health. But again, that's neither here nor there. That's not really your expertise.
And so stand on God's word, testify to his truth, understand it's the gospel that saves. That's the power of God for salvation. It's the message of the gospel that God uses to save people. Our role is to love them and to tell them the truth. And ultimately, when God saves, it's to his glory. So stop trying so hard.
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
Does that answer it? Don't try so hard. Just love people and trust God.
Okay. Let's see. Why don't we just see what other stuff they have out here?
So the gospel.
Quiet. I don't want to watch that. God damn it. Let's see. Oh, I've responded to this lady before. Let's see. What? Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that's a little alarming. What? I don't know if I want to watch this right now, but that is that might be something, the Joe Rogan versus Matt Walsh on gay marriage, oh boy. Heh, that's cute. Male and female, he created them. Um, I don't know, like, some of this stuff is really strange. About male and female, he created them. The Bible says God created male and female, but not that he created exclusively male and female. I have a video on my channel about, what science actually says about, gender and sex and things like that, but, actually, it's 1 minute, let's just see. Okay, let me just say, this advertisement, really fucking annoying because it is past the 22nd of January right now. So they shouldn't even be playing this advertisement anymore.
The danger
Okay, let's see what this is.
in any society is when you promote and demand that people celebrate the fundamental confusion as to who men and women are and what.
Nobody's promoting or celebrating confusion about who men and women are. We're respecting people's gender identities, but we're not forcing anybody, hopefully, into any identity that they don't want to be part of.
The family is. That's the end of that society.
Not really.
So here, I hope you know where to go. When someone says to you, oh, I don't think you should say those types of, we need to be loving.
Yeah.
There has never been anyone who walked the face of this earth that was more loving than Jesus.
Did Jesus even say anything about gender identity?
He proved it by allowing himself to be nailed on a cross.
Jesus is not the first or only person in history who has been killed, crucified for a belief.
And yet, he taught from the beginning, God made them male and female.
He never said only male and female. The fact that biological sex exists on a continuum and is determined by several different factors should be enough to tell us that it's possible to have more than just two sexes. There are two sexes that are the most common, but it doesn't mean that there are only two sexes.
And the only relationship that God will ever bless is one man and one woman
There is polygamy in the Bible.
together.
What? I don't want to. No. None of that one. What the fuck? Okay. Predestination. Oh, Jesus. Who is Elijah Near Ministries? Okay. Why don't we go back? No.
So we're gonna ask.
Okay. Why don't we go through another one? Let's see, how are we doing on time? Oh my god, how are we already at 41 minutes? That's alright. We'll do another one. Let's see. Let's see. Why don't we do Alan Parr?
Therapy for me, I think when the...
Okay, let's do this.
Sharing your faith with an unbeliever can...
What's the difference between an unbeliever and a non-believer? I never understood that. What is a non-believer? Somebody who, is the non-believer just a whole, of people who don't believe, and then unbelievers are people who, stopped believing at a certain point rather than, just never believing in the first place? What the fuck is the difference here?
Be one of the most intimidating and daunting experiences for any believer, no matter how long or short you have been a Christian. So
I wouldn't say that people who aren't Christians are necessarily intimidating people. I don't come across as intimidating, not just by my own judgment, but according to a lot of people who I've interacted with. My goal is not to scare people at all. And so I'm glad I don't come across as, threatening in any way. I'm a little strange, but I'm not, necessarily harmful. Sometimes I say slightly inappropriate things, but, the intention is not to cause anybody any kind of distress.
In this video, I want to give you 7 very practical
I don't like odd numbers.
Tips and strategies for how you can share your faith with any unbeliever. That's coming up today on The Beat. Hey, my friend, welcome back to The Beat. My name is Alan Parr. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time here, it's a pleasure. If you want a free ebook, click.
I don't want a free ebook. Unless it's something I'm interested in. But I'm not interested in the Bible story.
The link in the description box below. And if you enjoy this video, consider subscribing. Hit that little bell notification so you won't miss a beat. Okay, so
Never mind.
I'm not going to waste your time. Here are 7 very practical tips and strategies for how you can share.
Let's see how practical they are. I'm not going to ask for his definition of practical. I'm going to go in a way with my definition of practical. I can't really define practical, like, right off the top of my head, but I will just make my own assessments of how practical each of these are. You can agree or disagree with me if you want. It's fine.
Your faith with an unbeliever, because let's face it, that along with making disciples is the very reason why Jesus left us here. And tip number 1 is to understand that we cannot save anyone, but only God can.
So then why even bother going out and, running your mouth at random strangers about Jesus? Like, I envy these people's free time. Like, since I moved to Fort Collins, I have seen so many people, on the side of the street, on campus, blah, 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 just fucking, with their giant Jesus signs and, sometimes even, like, a whole karaoke system, like one of those wireless, like, boombox things and a microphone just shouting, whatever. I wish I had that kind of free time. I wish that I could just have that time where I could do whatever. And, maybe I could if I spent less time, engaging in special interests. But, I have to do some, stuff to preserve my mental health. And, it's just, in a way necessary for me to have time set aside in the day for that form of self-care. Okay? I have a certain self-care need where, for however long it takes, I just need to be engaged with something that piques my interests, such as, breeding my crested geckos, or, taking care of some young ferns or orchids or something.
As a matter of fact, Ephesians chapter 2 verse 1 says, "And you were dead in your trespasses and sins in which you once walked."
I don't understand what that means, but let's see if he explains it.
And so Paul here is describing our previous condition before we came to Christ. And he uses this word, dead.
Yes, this is the religion where dead things come back to life. We get it.
And so I want you to just imagine for just a moment if you were to go down to the local cemetery and
I'd be pretty hungry. I'm just kidding.
You were to provide the clearest, most convincing proof and description of
what?
Christianity, and just you
I would love to see that.
Laid out the gospel very clearly. The sad reality is that no one in that cemetery would even be able to comprehend and understand a word that is coming out of your mouth. Why? Because they are dead.
Yes.
They are unable to respond to anything that you are saying. Paul says, in the same way, before we came to Christ, we were dead. We were unable.
I mean, I feel a pulse. Feeling a pulse right here.
Able to respond to anything spiritually. So if someone doesn't get saved whenever you share your faith, don't blame yourself. Don't think that you weren't prepared. It could very well be that God has not quickened that person's heart yet, and their heart is...
I mean, you would just think that if God's really concerned about them getting saved, would he need you in the first place? And if he did, why he wouldn't prime somebody knowing that moment was coming up.
Is very hardened toward the things of God, and it's only when God quickens their heart when they will be able to respond to whatever you are saying. So Number one, know that you and I cannot save anybody. It has to be a work of God. Okay.
So then why are you even bothering? I wouldn't say that's, I mean, maybe that's practical in a way, but like, I don't know where he's going with that particular advice.
Okay, tip number 2 before we get to the really, really good ones is know the gospel.
I'm glad he's gonna get better than this.
Now, I know that seems very, very obvious, but you would be surprised at how many Christians do not understand very clearly what the gospel actually is.
I'm not surprised by that at all. There are a lot of people who read the gospel or the Bible, in a previous video I googled, what the difference between the two is, and they're different, but whatever. There are plenty of people who read the whole Bible and are like, well, this is a bunch of bullshit, and there are a few people, a small percentage of people who read through the whole Bible and still come out, believing what it says. But I'm not surprised that the majority of people who believe in this stuff haven't read the thing cover to cover. Me personally, I just don't have the attention span for that. And why would a God make anybody, who needs to read the Bible to be saved, incapable of reading the Bible? For any reason. It doesn't necessarily have to be because they don't have the attention span. The Bible used to be written only in Latin, and only the rich knew Latin. But then, there's also, before Braille was around, blind people wouldn't be able to read the Bible. Maybe they could listen to somebody reading it, but, it depends. Some people don't learn that way. When I taught a course, actually, do I want to show y'all kind of what I did? Wonder what this is. It's only 12 days old. Let's see. Breathe for just a second. Alright, so I taught plant identification over the summer. And one of the things that I did one of the major components of this course was to teach people how to kind of narrow down what they're looking at to the family level so they could use dichotomous keys to figure out what plant they're dealing with. And there are a number of applications for that. I'm not going to get into that, but I understand that people process information in different ways. So one of the things I did for this course was I did what's called search image building, where I had people, we talked about, what a search image was. It's kind of like the image you have in your head of what something you're looking for should look like. So when you build that search image in your head, you have a better, more rapid response to seeing something. So we talked about different families. This, I believe, is the Solanaceae. Is it? Yep. You can tell because the, I don't know if you're going to be able to see, what's this? Laser pointer, maybe? So, I wonder if this is working. The sepals down here are not fused, but the petals up here are, and a couple of other things can tell you that's in the Solanaceae. But you don't have to know all that. You just have to see enough solanaceous flowers to, recognize Solanaceae when you see it out in nature. Same thing with catkins on the Salicaceae. Same thing with various Rosaceae traits, such as having, flower petals in multiples of 5, at least 2 stamens here for each petal, red on the edges of the leaves that also have saw teeth to them, just things like that. That's Rosaceae. That's Cucurbitaceae. But anyway, that was one way. God damn it, I need to escape that. Okay. That was one way I went ahead and taught them some of this information. Then we did ruling out practice, where rather than pictures, we had some words. And this is, let's pretend we have a flower, and there are 4 petals to it. These are all of the families that we went over that have 4-petaled flowers, such as the Brassicaceae, the Onygraceae, Oleaceae, unless it's ash, in which case it has no petals to the flowers, shit like that. Whoops. you can rule out these families if there are 5 petals to the flowers. Some of these we know have 4 petals or no petals, and then some of these, because they're monocots, don't have petals in multiples of 5, like the orchids and the grasses, which is poaceae, things like that. No petals could be some of these things. 10 petals, there are only 4 things that would ever have 10 petals. 6 petals that are known as tepals, it's only going to be these monocot families, shit like that. We also had just some stuff here where we just described shit. 5 petals, 5 sepals, nodes swollen at the stem. That's going to be the caryophyllaceae. Flowers are in an umbel. Sepals greatly reduced. Hollow stem, it's definitely a dicot. It's going to be the carrot family or Apiaceae. Carrots. Flowers have inflated petals. Flowers are irregular, and what we taught the students, I taught the students, there are only going to be 2 main families that have irregular flowers, the Orchidaceae and the, what's it called? Fabaceae. And if it's a dicot, it's going to be Fabaceae. That's Fabaceae. Oh, sorry, the Balsaminaceae also does this. Let's see. My flowers are reduced, distinct stamens. I can't remember what this one was. Myrtaceae, okay. But anyways, and then finally, I made this monstrosity. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but this is a chart, a table. It's all in table form, where it's listing the family, how many petals, and you can use this as like a way of, I also made a dichotomous key to the families that we covered in that class. And so, the reason I did that was because I, unlike God, or these Christians, have the conception that different people are going to absorb information when it's presented in different manners. And that's something I did well.
And what it means and what exactly Christ has done for us, because there is nothing worse than someone being ready to become a Christian and they raise their hand and say, hey, okay, I get it, man. Sign me up. I'm ready to be a follower of Jesus Christ. How do I do that? And the person telling them about Christ doesn't even know how to walk them through the basic plan of salvation.
That sounds like a you problem.
And explain to them exactly what the gospel is. Now, if you are unclear about what the gospel is, I just did a video that describes very clearly exactly what the gospel is. I'm going to put a link in the description and I'm going to put a card somewhere up on the screen so you can watch that video. Okay, tip number 3, and this is huge.
I can't wait.
You have to build relationships over time.
Are you suggesting that somebody be disingenuous enough to enter into a friendship with somebody with the ultimate goal of converting them into a Christian? Because that is not at all a good reason to enter into a friendship with somebody. It's kind of shitty. I mean, I don't know who has time for all that anyway, but, this is something that makes people really fearful of Christians in general. The people who are, only looking to turn somebody into a follower of Christ. That is not a reason to become a friend of somebody's. And that should not be the ultimate goal of a friendship, okay?
As a matter of fact, Paul says here in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 6, he says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. And so Paul here is using an analogy from gardening to help us understand the process of salvation. In other words,
I'm not going to rant about gardening, not going to rant about gardening, not going to rant about gardening.
It may or may not happen right away. The person that you're talking to, they may or may not be ready right then and there to give up everything in the
then leave them the fuck alone.
Their old life and just simply follow Christ. It may take some time. And so Paul says, hey, sometimes you may be the person that just plants the seeds. Other times you may be that person that has to water those seeds. And that
It's just an analogy. Different seeds get treated differently depending on the species.
that may take a lot of time. You may have to spend time with that person to try to get to know them. And then ultimately, as I said in point 1, it's God that gives the increase. Now,
Then why even bother?
how exactly should we go about doing this? Well, first tip I want to give you is to listen to them, right?
Okay. Fair enough. Although, again, I don't want to talk at length to any one person but God. Generally, if I want to talk to you, it's because of some other reason. I may come to you because I have a question about a plant. I may come to you because I want to know, where do I fill out form X, Y, or Z, and who do I submit it to for whatever.
Somebody told me a long time ago that we have 2 ears and only 1 mouth for a reason, because we're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak. And so the idea here is that you're listening to them, trying to gather up information, just getting to know them. What are their life experiences?
Some of my life experiences I'm not going to share with you if I don't know you all that well. I'll share a life experience with you. There is a moth. I'm going to pull up a picture of it just so you know what it looks like. There is a moth called Disarming. It is my favorite moth in the family Sphingidae. It is a beautiful creature. Although in this picture there's Paeonius myops on the left, Disarming on the right. That's definitely a male Disarming. Both of these moths are males. Having reared both species, I know how to tell the males from females. That's a female Disarming. That's the larva. It looks like it's feeding on grape. That's one of its major hosts. That's a younger Disarming larva, probably a third instar, because they don't, they get a fattening around the thorax that you can see here. Actually, that's not the best picture of it, but here we go. Like the fourth, that looks more like Chihuahuas to me. But anyways, Disarming is a beautiful, charming little sphingid moth. Hang on a second, folks. I have a very large replica of Disarming. Because this moth is incredibly important to me. It was the focus of my first published paper. And one time at the University of Rhode Island, it was September, and I wasn't expecting the giraffes to emerge again, that late in the season, but they do grow fairly rapidly, and grape can hold its leaves quite late into the season, so, it was a surprise-ish type of thing. There is something called bet hedging that lepidopterans do as well. Not going to get into that here, unless you want me to. But anyway, I had a net cage. I had a cage that I put a female giraffe in, and I left for the night. And I came back in the morning. The female is gone, but there was a male from the wild in that cage. He must have been attracted to her because that's how they mate. The females release a smell, and the male's like, la 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 la, I smell female. I'm gonna go mate with her now. So what must have happened overnight was the male flew into the cage. The two fucked. The female left. Male stayed put. So now I have this male Myron, because I only had females at the time. This male Myron from the wild. That day, another female emerged from her pupa. So I put the two in a cage together. Okay? And what's it called? The day after that, the male died. Whatever. Female started laying eggs. And sure enough, those eggs ended up hatching. So that second night, that male must have mated with that female before he died. They don't live all that long as adults, and I wasn't really bothering to feed them. They don't always eat anyway. They don't need to be fed to mate. And so that's how I continued on with Disarming back in 2016. So that's a life experience of mine. I have no problem sharing that life experience with people. Hang on a sec, somebody. Okay.
What are their pain points? Are
What's a pain point?
there some things that happen to them in their life, whether it's things at church or maybe they were disappointed in God?
I would not make that a big thing you talk to somebody about unless they really want to. Now, I'm not advocating for trauma dumping. And it's important to talk about trauma, but obviously, being careful who you share sensitive stuff with. And obviously I would not suggest, sharing too much with total strangers unless it's something that's gonna help with advocacy, and you get to choose how much information you put into, some of those things. Like, if I share, a vague, just kind of brief overview of something, it's not the same as me going into, really strict detail about it. And, I may or may not be willing to do that, but I would not ever pressure somebody to share personal. This is a really, no, I mean, that's a pretty long chapter, but I would not pressure somebody into sharing something so sensitive and personal if they don't really want to.
Or maybe they grew up in church, but something happened along the way that turned them away from God, and now they're in this place where they don't believe in God.
I mean, just because somebody has bad experiences at church doesn't necessarily mean they're going to stop believing in God. They might stop going to church, but generally, if people stop believing in God, it's because of something like, just coming to an understanding that there's not a good reason to believe in God.
The more you listen, the more you're able to get an idea of their worldview, where they're coming from, and ultimately, the more you listen, the Holy Spirit is going to craft a tailor-made process, if you will, to.
I honestly think people should be spending their time doing other stuff. Grow a fern, or, run an experiment. Go run in the woods. I want to run in a stream.
To try to share your faith with this person as opposed to just simply doing the same cookie cutter experience or same cookie cutter strategy, if you will, for every single person that you meet. And then the second thing you want to do is ask them questions, like take a genuine interest in their life so that they will know that you're not just trying to just get another notch in your belt as a.
I would hope that that's not your goal, but it almost feels like you don't want, a reciprocal, because you're making the assumption that somebody's going to enter a relationship with somebody who has a different religion, and while staying with their religion, convert that other person to the same religion.
Another convert, but you really do want to get to know them. You really want to develop a relationship with them, and you want to be friends with them, because over time that is going to build trust. And after you put the time in, you're building trust, and after you build the trust, then you're able to share truth with this person. And not only that, it will allow you to see when the right time is for you to share the gospel, because
And it might be never. There aren't, always going to be, just like there are people who, during the course of a relationship, having sex with them is off the table for one reason or another. There are going to be people who, during your relationship with them, converting them to Jesus or whatever is going to be off the table. And you just have to deal with that. And I feel like, encouraging people to build a relationship with, anything in the back of their minds is not productive or, sincere.
You've been tracking with this person for some time, and God will tell you exactly when their heart is ripe and ready to hear the truth.
This Disarming plush, sculpture, whatever you want to call it, will tell you when it's the right time to teach somebody how to rear Disarming. And I was very happy over the summer when I found a Disarming larva on a Virginia creeper by my house. Very fun species, although something went wrong along the way. They just kind of failed to mate and lay eggs again, and I don't know. Generally, when I approach insect rearing, I don't look at I don't know how inbred they were anyway, but I don't look at inbreeding as a huge problem. It can be a problem for some species, I agree, but I think before you go to inbreeding, you gotta think of nutrition. And my guess is that, you know, because it's such a dry climate and blah blah blah, and the people that sent me the Myron were somewhere in California, like maybe it's just those larvae didn't have the right, before I moved to Colorado, I didn't know I was going to find the host plants out here. So I just released, because Durasmarin is a native, I released the, larvae that I had back out in Rhode Island, where they belonged. And then I moved to Colorado. And so, then I bought some eggs from people in California, but they, languished. And I don't know if it was just, a difference in climatic adaptation or what have you.
Truth. Okay, number 4 is huge. Be ready to help them overcome the objections that they may have about the Christian faith.
Okay, that's not too bad. That's not. Well, let's see what else he has to say about that.
Matter of fact, 1 Peter 3:15, one of my favorite verses in the New Testament, it says this, "And if someone asks you about your hope as a believer, always be ready to explain it."
Had to have high hopes.
Now, some people that you meet just want to argue with you, and I'm going to talk about that in the next point.
Oh, Jesus.
But some people that you meet, they are genuinely interested in the Christian faith, like they have real questions.
The power of Durasmarin compels you.
That if they could somehow get answers to these questions, it very well might help them overcome some of the objections that they have to the Christian faith. Now, this list of questions I'm going to give you is by no way exhaustive, but I think that these are some questions that if you are a believer ready to share your faith, you should be at any time locked and loaded and ready to give an answer to these.
Why does the Bible not mention Durasmarin? This is like the coolest sphinge to ever exist. And there's nothing in the Bible about any sphingid moth, really. I mean, come on.
These basic questions. Question number 1 is, why does God allow evil in the world?
The answer is Durasmarin, okay? And if you get nothing else out of this video, Durasmarin.
That's a question that a lot of people ask. They cannot seem to be able to reconcile, if you will, God being good, but yet there's evil as well. The second question you want to be ready to answer is, why is Christ and Christianity the only way to get to heaven? I mean, that
the fine print of the Bible mentions the Durasmarin clause. I'm just kidding. Oh crap, did I just mute it? There we go.
That is a genuine question that a non-believer or a seeker might have.
Different Christian denominations actually have different opinions about that, and that is something I would like these people to address.
The third question is, how can God be both 3 and 1?
I don't have an issue with that. Durasmarin can be Durasmarin and a moth and an insect at the same time. La 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 la.
I mean, this doesn't make sense. I thought that Christianity was a monotheistic religion, and now you guys are talking about this Trinity and all of that. Can you help me understand that?
Durapsa is a genus that has 3 species within it.
Question number 4. How can the Bible be written by God whenever it was written by men? And if that's the case, aren't there errors in it? I mean, what about the translations that we have? Can we really trust those? How do we know that the Bible that we have today is really the Word of God? And
we can't. That's the problem, you dumbass.
It's not just something that was part of a conspiracy theory that was...
I wouldn't say it's a conspiracy theory. I think it's more of a word orgy. I gotta tell my partner that. God, I really wish I had somebody to talk to about Durasmarin right now. Like, I will have a conversation with Alan Parr if he lets me rant about Durasmarin for 20 minutes. Seriously. If any of you evangelicals want to talk to me, now I would love to have a serious conversation about like evangelism and shit like that in the context of neurodivergent people. But, there's got to be give and take. I would like to talk to you about Dropsamiron. And then we can talk about Jesus, okay? Listen to me blab about Dropsamiron for a half hour. 20 minutes, half hour, whatever. Then I'll give you 20 minutes to a half hour to talk about Jesus all you want, okay?
Was written by man. And then another question that you may want to be ready to answer is, how do we know that Jesus Christ ever lived? And
we don't.
If he lived, how do we know that he indeed rose from the dead? And so here are just a few questions that people,
he doesn't answer these, but whatever,
typically ask whenever they have objections to the Christian faith, that it would be in your best interest to have answers ready for these questions. Okay, tip number 5 is very important. Whenever you are sharing your faith with an unbeliever, don't debate them.
That's actually a good tip because, I have my own opinions about debate. They don't belong in this video, but, people approach debate differently, and, some people don't always want to get into a debate for a number of reasons, and, they're generally valid. Again, if it's me, I just usually don't have time. Right now I, should be asleep, and instead of making this video, that's kind of my choice, whatever. But, you might notice that, like, if I were making this video in the middle of the day, I may have a, slightly, I don't want to say different tone, but, like, maybe I'll be less snarky, maybe I'll be more focused, If I make a video, an hour after I take my Adderall, I'm going to have more focus than, right before bedtime. Oh, fuck, I keep hitting that button.
Once again, 1 Peter 3:15 says, and if someone asks you about your hope as a believer, always be ready to explain it, but do this in a gentle and respectful way.
That is good because, I'm not saying, I can be snarky, and I try to do it lightheartedly, just to kind of be funny, lighten the mood, whatnot. I don't mean to insult or offend people.
So this is huge. Just pay attention to what I'm getting ready to say. Some of the people that you meet and come in contact with are genuinely going to be interested in wanting to understand what Christianity is all about.
Yes. Not everybody is, though.
But there is another group of people out there that they're not really genuinely seeking truth. All
they're not seeking Christ. That doesn't mean they're not seeking truth.
Trying to do is try to trap you and try to cause you to have doubt about what you believe, and they're not really interested in learning about Christianity.
Again, conversations are give and take. You can't expect, somebody to not have, I'm not saying that, like, I'm not really interested in stopping people from being Christians. I'm interested in stopping people from acting like assholes with their Christianity, but, like, whether you're a Christian at the end of the day, I could kind of care less, I would be more worried if you, like, wanted to rear Dropsamiron and didn't know how to, and I could teach you how to rear Dropsamiron, because Dropsamiron's a great species of moth. If you're going to go into a conversation but have no open-mindedness about what the other person is saying, then you're not really having a conversation, now are you?
These are the types of people that the Spirit of God quickly in that conversation should lead you to go in a different direction because their heart is still hardened towards the things of the
something like that. Sorry, I'm just kidding.
Of God's word, hardened towards the things of truth, and they're not in a position, no matter how convincing
your heart is hardened towards Dropsamiron because you haven't mentioned Dropsamiron at all in this video.
Argument is they're not in a position to receive the truth. Okay, tip number 6.
The fact that he said position to receive.
Be ready to share your personal testimony.
Please don't. People don't care, and, people like to make these stories, like, fucking hour long. I mean, like, how long did I spend ranting about, the Girapsa, like, male Myron flying into the cage, female leaving, and then, I got another female from an emergent pupa, blah, 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 like, not everybody wants to sit around for that.
Now, I say this with some caution because for many Christians, this is about as far as we get in terms of sharing our faith. We say, well, you know what? I don't really know anything. I don't know the Bible. I don't know any truth. I don't know any scriptures. I don't know anything. I don't even know how to tell you about what the gospel is.
Remember that the Bible is the claim, not the evidence for a claim.
But I just know what God did for me, and I know how God changed my life.
I would replace the word God with Disarming.
That is very important. There should be some life change that you should be able to tell someone else.
You want to talk about transformation? You really want to talk about transformation? This can transform into this, because this is also Disarming, just at a younger stage. Okay? That's not Disarming. That's a very, very sweet-looking Disarming. That's a male, because the end of the abdomen kind of looks like the tip of a calligraphy pen in the males. The females just have like a really pointy end to the abdomen. These are males. That's a female. You can tell by the pointy end of the abdomen. Let's see if there's a better shot of a female. A lot of these are males, which is normal. Males are more attracted to the lights. Oh, that's a female. That's a girl. Very pretty. That looks like a male to me. You know, I've reared these things, for years. I know how to tell. That's a male. Look at the tiny larva. That's probably an early second instar larva because of you can tell it just molted because of how big the head capsule is in comparison to the body. And when they first hatch out, they are not that color. Oh, I know this lady. She hasn't changed that to include... Oh, wait, sorry, that's Wyoming. That's Colorado. Look at how pretty. Ah, these were my pictures. Because I was teaching people how to sex the pupae of this thing. Oh, yeah. What a beautiful animal. Like, we all just need to experience giraffes. Oh, I think she got married finally. Nice. Good for her. I should congratulate her. Oh, there's a picture of my rearing setup with that looks like a late fourth instar myron larva. There's another one. There's several behind it. You got to be careful when rearing giraffes because the larvae will cannibalize if they don't have enough food. So that's me with all my pupae. I used to rear so many of these. I would call it giraffes apocalypse because I would just have so many emerging at once. More of my pictures. Yeah, the larvae come in different colors. You can see that there are some cute brown ones or like orangey color, and they turn like purple right before they pupate, and that's how you know they're ready to pupate. That's a male myron there. You can tell by the shape of the end of that abdomen. I'm onto something here. I swear.
Whenever they're asking you about why you are a believer. But this alone is not enough.
You think?
Oftentimes to adequately share your faith with someone, because there are many religious systems throughout the world that boast and make claims that people's lives have been changed. I mean, the person you're talking to could say, yeah, that's great, but I have a friend who just became a Muslim.
Yeah, that's possible.
And they follow the rules and laws of Islam and all the teachings of Islam.
I mean, I think they should follow the rules of Disarming.
And their life has been changed too. So what makes Christianity any different? So you should be ready to share your testimony, but don't just rely on testimony. You must also have some truth along with your testimony.
I gave you a compelling testimony of Disarming and, proof that I've, reared these motherfuckers. Really nice, fun critter to have around. Why aren't you reading Disarming yet?
And then the seventh and final tip might be the most important one, and that is this. Trust God, the Holy Spirit, to lead and guide you throughout the entire process of you sharing your faith. One of my favorite scriptures is Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 through 20. We call it the Great Commission, and this is the last thing that Jesus said. He says, "Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you." Now watch this. "And be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." My friend, remember, when you share your faith, Jesus is with you. You are not by yourself. He has left the Holy Spirit to live and reside in you, to guide you and lead you and prompt you and give you the words to say and bring the things back to your remembrance, so that whenever you're sharing your faith and you're nervous and you don't know what to say, God, the Holy Spirit, trust Him. Spend some time in prayer beforehand, asking God to lead you and give you wisdom and give you insight and to get your mind right, so that whenever you get into that conversation, and more importantly, whenever you get into that long-term relationship with that unbeliever, the Spirit of God will be leading you in that relationship, so that hopefully, ultimately, one day, they can become a believer
I'd rather,
in Christ. So, my friend, I hope these 7 tips will make it.
yeah, I mean, like, I'll try Jesus if you try to wrap some iron. Seriously, like, rear generation to wrap some iron for me, and then we can have a conversation.
Easier for you to share your faith the next time you come across someone who doesn't believe in Christ. Remember this, it may or may not happen right away. If it does, great. If it doesn't, make sure you reach out and build a relationship with them, because you may be the person that not just plants the seed, but God may want you to water it, and ultimately God is going to give the growth. If you found this video helpful in any way,
I did not find the video helpful, actually. All right, well, that was a fun, sort of unexpectedly long video, and I do apologize for all the wrap some iron stuff in there. But I was making a point. The point was, there's a weird taste in my mouth. What you guys didn't see, between the finishing of the actual screen recording to this ending, the outro that I make. I went to the bathroom, brushed my teeth. There was, my toothbrush just tasted a little funny. Maybe I should replace it. It just tastes like toothpaste, so maybe I didn't rinse it well enough, but whatever. I have another video idea now, but anyway, my point about Giraffe-Iron, and, you could replace Giraffe-Iron with, anything you're, passionate about, but the point is, there are theists, there are atheists, and, everybody in between, so everybody falls somewhere, in general on, that continuum of belief, non-belief, whatever. But that's not the only part of our identity, okay? And I really, was driving home the point that, there are other facets of our lives. And, there are things that we focus on, or we don't focus if you have really raging ADHD. But there are things that don't have to do with God at all, that we choose to spend our time. And I'm sorry if this, me just waving this fake moth around, is bothersome to anybody. This was made in 2018. I've had this thing for, quite a while. My major professor's dog almost got it at one time, and she tears stuffed animals apart, so I'm glad she didn't. This thing was expensive, whatever. It was worth it to have a model of, one of my favorite. You can see the Luna moth behind me. That's another one of my favorites. I do love Lunas. Those are really great as well. A little bit easier to rear, less cannibalistic. They're more of a dietary generalist. But anyway, I was making the point that there are other things, in our lives that are going on, and we really want to be careful about just, trying to turn everybody into a Christian because, we think we can, And for me, you know, there are a lot of these people are just inconsiderate in some way. And I don't think they mean to be. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt whenever I can. But I think that there are things that people just need to consider. So yeah, I thank you for watching this, and if you like this or if you don't like this, you want to leave a comment, like, whatever, go right ahead. Remember, stay pedantic, be romantic if you want, be anywhere in relation to the Atlantic. I don't know.